This has not changed the entire offseason. There are things going on at Notre Dame. This just doesn't stop. We got John Kennedy on the line, our buddy from Always Irish. Get on over there right here on YouTube and check out John's work. John, how you doing today?
Busy is how I'm doing. We did the live call-in stream on YouTube this morning from 9. Usually it's 9 to 11. I knew it was going to run long. We went almost 3 hours, and Notre Dame folks have a lot to say. It's always something, Mark, and there's always something with every team. There's something about Notre Dame. Whenever one little thing happens, it doesn't matter. It gets blown up, and we're going through that now. There are a lot of angles to it. It should be Hartman looked great in the spring game. The offense is trending up. Let's tighten things up for the summer here. And it's turned into, where's Tyler Buchner going? Is he staying? Is that the right move? Is he want to rejoin Tommy Boy at Alabama and bring Notre Dame down south? We got it all going on, Mark.
Yeah, so note to self, the next time I have John on, if you got the time, John, we'll take you live and we'll take some of the comments and the questions from outside the Notre Dame fan base. I'm sure you always enjoy those as well. So yeah, let's start there with Tyler Buchner. Tyler Buchner's a pretty darn good quarterback, right? He's capable. We saw him down the stretch against South Carolina, of course, after he was injured much of the season, and they were a different offense, certainly versus Drew Pine. So this is telling me, number one, that Sam Hartman is definitely taking the reins as the guy. But also, and so a lot of people have dismissed it. I've actually seen these comments made on Twitter like, it doesn't matter, Sam Hartman's a quarterback. Well, these guys tend to get hurt. It's a collision sport. So you may want a good guy in the backup role. And I understand Tyler Buchner is in the transfer portal, but there is some talk that he may not necessarily follow through with it.
But the logic here makes no sense, Mark. People saying, who cares? Hartman's the quarterback, talking about Buchner as if he wasn't going to be the quarterback last year and was hurt all year. So that logic right there makes no sense because we just existed in this nightmare with Buchner last year. So that is first totally illogical. Let's go back, Mark. Tyler Buchner's a guy all Notre Dame people have supported, wanted him to develop, wanted him to grow. The raw athleticism is there. He is the perfect Notre Dame quarterback fit guy. Well-spoken, smart kid, represents the university beautiful. He does all of that. The issue is he's had either bad luck or bad health, or bad health and bad luck his entire since the end of high school, Mark. He moved to play better competition before coming to Notre Dame, COVID year. He lost a year to an ACL. Then he had a COVID year. Then you're redshirting. Then they bring in Cone, the transfer that started over him. Then it was going to be his year last year, and he was hurt all year. Then he was healthy, and this was going to be the year. And then Notre Dame pops into the portal and ends up with the hottest quarterback name in the portal this year. That was your dynamic leading into spring. Here's where this started getting messed up and messy, Mark. You know how these coaches run spring ball. They don't want you to see much. They have these little windows for media to get in there just to beat guys. They'll put out a clip or two of a good play. They don't want John Q. Public or John M. Kennedy to see everything going on. Things started leaking out, Mark. Oh, it looks like Buchner's ahead of Hartman, and maybe Hartman's struggling to get the new playbook and learn his new guys and all that. So then you started getting Notre Dame media that was in the practices kind of saying, this isn't a slam dunk. Buchner looks better than him a lot of these practice windows when we're in the building. So that was the tone all spring without everybody being able to see what's going on. So you add that dynamic of people saying, you would only bring Hartman in here if you wanted him to earn the starting job. Not that you just hand it to him, but you don't bring Hartman in here unless you want him to win that job, okay? So you had that. And then all this information of Buchner's might be out playing them through these spring practices. So then that all culminates last Saturday. The beautiful South Bend weather we experienced, sunshine, rain, sleet, snow, we had it all, didn't bother me. It all culminated there. Were we going to see these two guys battle it out, throw by throw, whatever? And it ended up Hartman looked great. Just efficient, effective, in rhythm, with it, like way more than I would expect out of a spring game performance. From almost anybody. He ran it very efficiently. Buchner struggled. It was a struggle. Now they divide up the team. So the offensive line, one may have been better protection than the other. We know that. But there was no doubt leaving Notre Dame Stadium Saturday, you got your number one guy. And even in the midst of those conflicting reports, anybody who saw that knew this is a guy controlling that offense. That's a maestro. Sixth-year guy. That's the stability Notre Dame has been lacking and has needed, okay? So that's the dynamic. And then the question was, now what? Now what? And then we were all waiting, now what? And the now what is Buchner's in the portal. And now nobody knows whether that's good or bad or what. And what does that mean for next year? And so now it's just messy. If Hartman's the guy and he's healthy next year, okay. But if you have an injury, now we're in the same deja vu nightmare as last year. So that's messing with people.
Yeah. You don't have to sell me on Hartman. He's impressed me ever since he stepped on the field at Wake Forest. I've been tracking his career, watching a lot of Sam Hartman, much more than I had ever watched Wake Forest before. So you mentioned, John, that you just took calls for 3 hours, and you mentioned where people's mindset is. Well, you can certainly tell us the crazy stories about the people on opposite ends of the spectrum and where their minds are. But if you take the collective fan base, where are most people on the Notre Dame ledger?
I think most people realize Hartman's the guy. They want Hartman to be the guy because it is the best move for next year's team to be competitive, okay? I think people are getting that, but there's so much Notre Dame respect and attachment to Buchner for all his struggles and sticking it out, being a great kid, that it just pulls on us that you wanted that all to work out in the romantic Notre Dame story, and the quarterback comes through and it all works out. And it just seems like that might not be the case. And then now you're getting into these discussions of some of these guys are coming and going. Does that mean Freeman's doing a good job or a bad job? Is he flipping that roster more to fit his image and knows what he wants to do? Or a few guys in the portal, is that a sign that maybe they don't like what's going on? So now you have that discussion in there. And I just think it's a scenario where you can understand where everybody in this mix is coming from. And it's not really something where you're at fault or you're at fault. It's just, this is a complicated instance, and there's some uncomfortable conversations and decisions to be made. And everybody's just kind of conflicted on it. And a part of it is what's going to happen if Hartman gets hurt, you don't have Buchner. It's hard, Mark. And who am I, Mr. Notre Dame guy in his basement, to say, Buchner, don't leave. We love you, but only as the backup. Like how picky do I get to cry about not wanting him to leave, but I also don't want him to start? Do I get to be that picky in the modern era college ball where if a guy thinks he should get the job and done, he could go, the heck with this, I'm out of here. I just don't know if I get to be that picky to want all that.
We are in an environment in modern day college football where if the coach strategizes extremely effectively, plus he gets a little lucky, then he gets that succession of he's got the guy that's in play. He's the established and the number one guy. The second guy is a development guy, but he's a high talent guy, but he knows that it's okay. I got to wait a year, but then I'm going to be ready. And you follow this line of procession, but it's impossible to strategize your recruiting that well because there's no way to avoid these kind of situations. They're happening all over the country quarterbacks running into each other, and therefore it's the only position where you only can play one guy. So if it's not going to be you, they're looking to go somewhere else, of course.
Yeah. And you know what? Here's one thing I will say, Mark. Of all the comments I've gotten from all the stuff I've done since this news broke, nobody's really saying, you know what, this is bad of Buchner. Everybody's pretty understanding of his frustrations. Like I'm seeing more. He's been really loyal to Notre Dame. Like wherever he ends up, we want him to do well type of deal. Kind of how I ended up with Tommy Rees. Getting out of the shadow of the dome might be good for you. I'm not seeing a lot of negativity about Buchner making the decision to enter the portal. It's just more confliction about big picture, what's best. And there are some in Notre Dame media that were Buchner guys, loyalists, and really wanted him to fully run the offense for a full year and see where we're at. But I think Freeman tried to do that last year, and he was out for the whole year halfway into game 2. I can't set us up for that again. And that's how all this started, with that protection. And it just happened that Hartman was the guy. And he's earned that job. He looked good.
Now, of course, the spring game gets blown out of proportion, but if people realize what it is, it's important because it's our one time to see the team, but it can't be taken out of context. There were 14 other sessions that are just as important, and some of them, to some extent, might be a little bit important because you're able to run your offense and do some different things that you don't want to show your opponents. So you can do that behind closed doors. But if you put it all together based on what you heard, what you saw, and then put together last Saturday, you know, where are the high points and the low points for this football team and trying to get better toward August?
Yeah, it's just really tricky. And here's the thing. The spring game's rough because they divided up the teams. They do these drafts. So you get a receiver, you get a receiver. It's not a dynamic where at Blue and Gold, I was watching all the number ones running with Hartman against the number one defense and then switching the quarterbacks with the same setup. That right there does throw a monkey wrench in how you're looking at it because how those teams are divided up. I know late last week, Notre Dame did have a full one-on-one scrimmage, but nobody saw it. Like that wasn't the Blue and Gold game. That was them behind closed doors. So that would be very informative. And when you're looking at the reports you heard, and then you look at what you saw Saturday in person, here's where I fall on that. If it looked close, anywhere close, and I'm not even talking about like how many passes you completed, but just like rhythm of the offense, control of what's going on, looking like you're the guy running a smooth ship, none of that stuff looked even close. If I left that game Saturday and said, man, both those guys look really good, this is going to be a real battle in August, then I would have a different position. It was not even close. It looked like a year 6 guy who knew what the heck was going on and a younger guy still trying to find consistency, comfort, rhythm, and all that because Buchner just hasn't had the reps. He's just either been hurt or behind a transfer. He doesn't have the reps, and it showed. And that stability with the high-end ceiling that Hartman provides that's what Notre Dame needs right now. That's what they needed the last few years and haven't had. That's it. That model of I know what I'm going to get, and this guy's going to control the operation. That's what Notre Dame has needed and has not had. Hartman offers it. It just means Buchner might want to go play, and I can't blame a guy for that. This is going to blow your mind, Mark. I can't even believe I'm at this point that I'm going to say this. All these years, you know, Notre Dame burned down in 2016 with that 4-8 bottoming out. Kelly realized he had to make a bunch of changes. And from 17 on, the defense has been the absolute heart and engine of this entire operation. Notre Dame has not gotten over the hump. The only reason they've been close has been a really top-notch defense. Not the most elite athletes, but like ultimate bend but don't break, keep you in every game type defense. And then leaning on the run game and the tight ends. That's been Notre Dame's existence. But that defense has been the backbone. I'm at a position now where I'm saying I think the offense might actually carry the team next year. And I have more questions of what's going on defense than I do on offense right now. And that is a little bizarre for me to say. But that offense is truly trending up, Mark. The two areas Notre Dame was most deficient entering last year due to ineffective recruiting and development of the previous regime and what was left. Quarterback room, disaster nightmare. Wide receiver room, you and I could have played last year, Mark. It was that rough as far as bodies that were healthy and could do anything, all right? Awful spots. In one calendar year, both of those have been flipped really good. Chancey Stuckey, the wide receiver coach, it hurts me. The NFL was already after him after this year. They're going to be after him. He has done a magnificent job recruiting and developing that wide receiver room in one calendar year. That guy has done an amazing job. And up until Buchner made this decision, the quarterback room looked great too, because behind Hartman and Buchner, you have Kenny Minchie, who Notre Dame kind of stole kind of late in the recruiting process. Feel pretty good about him. And then I don't mean this in the way it's going to come out, but that shiny new car that's heading our way in 2024 in the name of CJ Carr, people are real excited about what he could be. So those two areas have been upgraded massively in the last year. We feel good about the O-line. The running back room is one of the best in the country. They are diverse, and they have a lot of guys that could do a lot for you. Notre Dame's tight ends, they're going to take care of themselves. They're at that level. I feel great about that offense. Flip it to defense, and now I'm a little nervous. 4 out of the 6 top tacklers on the front end of that D are out. Over half of the sacks are out. Notre Dame's secondary has been a concern my entire existence. There's never been a time John's been alive he wasn't worried about Notre Dame's secondary. Benjamin Morrison, true sophomore NFL guy as long as the day is. But I need 2 or 3 of him and a couple safeties that back him up. So defensively, there's actually more questions than there is on offense right now. The 2 Als, Al Golden and Al Washington, they got to step it up. This is the year of the Als, and it just can't drop off enough that I ever get on a show and go, the defense let us down and it's why we lost. Like it just can't be that. So it could be fine, but when I have all these unknowns, I got to worry about you till I know you're not an unknown and I can rely on what I'm going to get. But with so much new, that is wait and see. But if the offense takes off, even if they don't score more points, but keep the ball longer, that helps. You know, every minute they're not on the field, that helps. If you end up scoring another 7 points a game because of Hartman, that gives that defense some leeway. So in the oddities of oddities, I actually feel like that offense is trending way up toward modernity, and the defense I'm wait and see on.
So because of all that uncertainty and all those questions may make my next question a little bit null and void. And certainly this is not a development program. So this is not like talking about Kansas State or Minnesota where you would say, okay, we got a good group of seniors. The schedule's light this year. We're trending up. We look, this is the year to make the push. Okay, this is more of a developmental year. We don't quite have the senior class. Those sorts of things. That's not the way Notre Dame approaches this,
No.
Nor should they. It should be gunning for a national championship every year. However, there are obviously years in which you feel better about the way things are setting up for a number of reasons, and then years that you think, okay, we're going to take our best shot, but I'm not expecting necessarily this to be the year. So which one of those are you more inclined to say?
I mean, you ask a great question, because I think the reality is going to be a cop-out kind of right in the middle is where I see this operation right now. Mark, you want to know something I take heat on every time I do a live show and the commenters nail me for every time Mark, nobody wants to hear this from me. certain things come up about this roster and the possibilities and whatever. And depending on what it is, sometimes I feel obligated to bring up that the reason we're in a tricky position now is because of some of what happened before, meaning bad recruiting and development. And then down the pipeline, you got to pay the piper 2 years later, and it falls in my boy Marcus's lap. Okay. But when I bring that up, you know how it goes. John, you don't like Kelly. You're carrying water for your boy. You don't, this is ridiculous. Kelly's gone. It has nothing to do with him. Buddy, we had like no wide receivers in a whole recruiting class when Kelly was here. You got to pay a bill for that later. And it doesn't come the year you sign that class. It comes 1 or 2 years later when that class matures and there's no bodies, right? So I struggle with that, with the reshaping of this roster. I believe there's more work to be done than a lot of Notre Dame people want to admit to get to the level of like playoff game winning type stuff. There's some more work to be done there than a lot of Notre Dame folks want to admit. And I take crap for it every day for bringing that up. But for next year, tough schedule. The big three: Ohio State, USC, Clemson, rebuilt offensively. Clemson, by the way. And that one's at Death Valley. That'll be interesting. Tough schedule. Here's where I fall on this. Anything under 10-2, the natives are going to get real restless. And I know that's tough schedule. Anything lower than 10-2, this is going to get ugly.
Meaning you win one of the big three at least and hold serve throughout, or you get tripped up somewhere and you got to win 2 out of 3 against the big three to hit that 10-2 mark. So you think that's kind of par for the course, and then you're going to have a split fan base where some people are going to be like 10-2, great year, great progress, took a step forward. Some people are going to be like, we shouldn't be losing to Clemson and Ohio State or whoever it turns out to be.
Yeah.
Kind of deal. Yeah.
Yeah. You're in kind of a unique pivot year here. Year one for Marcus, you're going off feel and it's all a whirlwind and you're doing the best you can. You're learning all the dynamics. And then I look at year 2 as a key pivot year to kind of make your adjustments and take a look at what you did off instinct year 1 and what you could tweak and adjust and make those calibrations in that year 2. And then historically for Notre Dame, a lot of our coaches that end up accomplishing a lot, year 3 is a huge year for them. And so you have that on track, and that year 3 lines up with the new playoff setup. It's a big year for Marcus to keep this thing kind of going here.